and Ira, on the corner, real talk corner.
Real Entertainment Network.
Ira and Reese. The talk is still real. We still on the corner. We gonna touch on some topics.
SKN, we got topics. Let's have a discussion. The people got questions. The people want answers. Yeah, we got topics. Let's have a discussion. The people got questions. The people want answers. Yeah, it's real talking. It's real talk. It's real talking. It's real talk. It's real talking. Real talk. It's real talking. Real talking.
Ira and Reese.
Dynamic duo,
Talk is still real. We still on the corner.
real talk
We
corner.
gonna touch on some topics.
It's real talking. It's real talk. It's real talking. It's real talk. It's real talking. Real talk. It's real talking. Real talking.
Check it out, you know, in tune.
My daddy made this beat.
Yo, check it out, you know, in tune to the dynamic duo, Reese and Ira, on the corner, real talk corner.
Real Entertainment Network.
Ira and Reese. The talk is still real. We still on the corner. We gonna touch on some topics.
SKN, we got topics. Let's have a discussion. The people got questions. The people want answers. Yeah, we got topics. Let's have a discussion. The people got questions. The people want answers. Yeah, it's real talking. It's real talk. It's real talking. It's real talk. It's real talking. Real talk. It's real talking. Real talking.
Ira and Reese.
Dynamic duo,
Talk is still real. We still on the corner.
real talk
We
corner.
gonna touch on some topics.
It's real talking. It's real talk. It's real talking. It's real talk. It's real talking. Real talk. It's real talking. Real talking.
Check it out, you know, in tune.
In tune with who? With who? Oh, we're back. Yeah,
Okay,
full
now.
effect. Me there, you know. But I called mash me up last week. The man said COVID, but no COVID. COVID the old news. It was just a call. But what going on with you?
Everything cool, yeah, just chilling.
Yeah. I just want to take the
Every-
time out to apologize to all the fans that we let down last week. People were expecting us to be online. And unfortunately, due to circumstances beyond my control, we weren't able to make it. So people will be counting on us to come on this show, and at least we have to update them when things change. You know, we gotta do better than that, right? So big
No,
up to
man,
those who
totally
keep us
agree.
in check. Yeah,
Totally agree. Just apologies.
for sure. With that said, Reese, how's everyone? How's the family?
Man, everybody good here, can't complain. Can't complain. Everybody doing good.
Yeah,
We had a great week. Hope everything's good on your end as well.
I'm doing better on my end. Doing a lot better on my end. Yeah, last week I was really fighting off this cold. Me and my son actually. So we both doing better now. Season change, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
man. Yeah, man. There we go.
how that go. But what we have tonight, we have a young, intelligent mind stopping by to have a discussion on a topic that we actually need some discussion around it. You know, the topic is xenophobia. And we're gonna get into what xenophobia is for those who don't, who doesn't know what xenophobia is, and we also have a guest and his name is VJ. Um, VJ, and VJ is going to help us bring forth this topic today. Let's just bring VJ online and let the people
Yeah,
then see
man.
VJ face. So I don't know if he ready, but ready or not.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, good
Good
night,
night,
good
good night, good night.
night.
Good.
VJ, how are you, man?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Reese, all right? Me, all
I'm
right?
pretty good. Can't complain.
Yeah.
That's good.
You ready to dive down into this topic? Just kind of get the people a backstory of who you are, VJ. We kind of like the people to know who's talking. Why is it that you might be able to talk about this topic from an SKN
Okay,
standpoint?
so let me preface this by saying that I am not a psychologist or sociologist. So my thoughts on this area are just my own experiences and my own observations on the topic. But as you would have introduced me, I am Vijay Harinarain. I am a citizen of St. Kitts Nevis. I am about to be 30 very soon. So I've experienced, I would say, 30 out of the 40 years of independent St. Kitts Nevis, specifically Nevis. I would have to introduce myself in terms of what I've done. I was, I can see Alan is here. But yeah, I used to play cricket. I represented Nevis throughout, the youth levels. I never played for the senior team. Outside of that, I was a youth officer, worked with young people for 6 years in Nevis, Department of Youth and Sports, putting on programs, youth, both geared towards youth and sports. And yeah, right now I'm in the field of technology and I work as a technician, and that's basically who I am. My backstory. I mean, clearly, I am
Mm-hmm.
um, I am the son of two immigrants. Both of my parents are from Guyana. They
Mm-hmm.
moved here in 1990,
Mm-hmm.
just after Hurricane Hugo.
Mm-hmm.
So yes. So actually, I think it was 1989. Yeah, because
That was
yeah.
Hugo. Yeah,
That
that
was
was
Hugo. Okay,
Hugo.
so it would be
Yeah,
1990. Yeah. So 1990. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, okay. So basically, you're not even 20. You're not even 30 yet. Dang.
Soon to be. Soon to be.
You're not even 30 yet.
Yeah.
But okay, so let's get into it. We're gonna hold the breaks today. So, Vijay, question to you, right? And then just open up. The term non-national. Uh,
hmm
I I don't really look at you as a non-national, but do you see yourself as a non-national?
No,
Okay,
I don't see
because
myself as a no. I don't see myself as a national.
okay, okay, definitely, and I could respect that because I just listened to your talk. You told me that you came from two immigrant parents who migrated from Guyana, yet still I got no undertone of a Guyanese accent from you. Now, let's talk about what we have to talk about today. Xenophobia, right?
hmm
Xenophobia. Uh, Xenophobia. A lot of people know racism, right? Racism is like you use the word racism or racist. It's a big term, and everybody gets scared and everybody feel offended. Now, xenophobia I would class a little higher than racism. The reason being why I would class xenophobia a little higher in terms of prejudice and discrimination is because when you start to define these two terms, they're a lot different, right?
hmm
Xenophobia, in essence, is the fear or hatred against someone foreign or something foreign. Now, the two main words in there, so for me, is fear and hatred. When you start talking about racism now, on the other hand, racism is the idea that your race is superior, is the superior race. right? That that is what racism is, right? Racism is the idea that your race is the superior race. And then it leads into other things. So now when we start talking about xenophobia now, we're gonna have to examine xenophobia as it pertains to St. Kitts and Nevis, but not only to St. Kitts and Nevis, but also to citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis who live in the diaspora, right? Because I myself, Reese as well, we live in the diaspora and we live overseas. We're part of the diaspora, and we have our own challenges that we may face being foreigners to a land that we live in. Now, VJ and I had a few discussions earlier, and we're gonna get really deep into this conversation, right? I don't know if VJ wants to give us any example of
But you have a
xenophobia.
perfect example in the comments right now.
Yeah,
You have someone saying that I have an accent.
yeah.
You know, I mean, sometimes I just have to laugh.
Yeah,
I think I want to agree with you in terms of I agree that there is a difference between xenophobia and racism, but I think xenophobia is more of a umbrella term, and racism is more specific to, like let's say race, for example. But xenophobia could include, culture, religion, accents. Even those are things that xenophobia to cover. So yeah, I mean, I don't really have to provide you with an example. I mean, it's kind of on my screen. I don't know about you, but I mean, these are things that can manifest. We may not even think about it in that sense, but these are things that would encompass what xenophobia is.
yeah, and that is a fact, right? That is a fact. That's like whenever I tell anybody I was born in St. Croix, and guess what? Their whole perspective of me changed. Knowing that I grew up in Nevis all my life and know only Nevis. After I said I was born in St. Croix, I'm no longer a Nevisian in their eyes. So okay, so where do we have the problems? We have the problems in different communities, right? We definitely have the problem where nationals versus non-nationals and non-nationals versus nationals, right?
Hmm.
Why did I put it that way? It's because there is the idea where yes, a non-national might face xenophobia because they're coming to a country where they're the minority, but not because not because they're the minority. They in turn sometimes display their own form of xenophobia. Now let's get into it,
That is
right?
okay. Cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's get into it.
Hmm.
Let's start off with let's start off with um the politics of it, right? I'll
Before
just get into it.
before we get into the politics, let's just get into the general um, everyday person without even having to be let's say provoked in a way. That is something that manifests itself. But before I continue, I would like to say good night to my friend Adele. I see that she's in the chat. uh, so good night to you, Adele. But yeah, uh, the everyday person, I mean, it's something that it doesn't particularly need to be weaponized, even though I do agree that it is at a political level and other levels as well. But the everyday person, I've experienced it. I experience it, if not daily, if well, maybe every 2 days, every 3 days. And like I said, I don't think it's something that people are really cognizant of that they do. They don't see it as something that they're doing wrong. but I mean, it's still wrong because you're still kind of belittling someone based on things that, in essence, they just can't change about themselves. And that's not something that I agree with in any instance, any kind of prejudice, hate against someone. I don't believe in that. So, it doesn't
Well,
really require persons to get that motivation. It's just maybe something intrinsic. Yeah, and that's just in
well,
general. I think, yeah.
to me as well, I think a lot of individuals who partake in that behavior, they act that way because they have never been on the receiving end. And what you see is a lot of individuals would have gone outside, would have left their comfort zone and went outside, and then they experience it. Then they have another viewpoint, because you're only looking at it from the point where you're looking at someone. But then when you step outside and someone is looking at you, then you start to feel the way you may have made someone feel, and then you have that reflective moment.
Reese, you know what? I would say maybe that's not entirely true because from you step outside, once we come to America, automatically anything that we feel is discriminant becomes racism. And we don't
Okay,
think about xenophobia.
okay.
You see what I'm
So
saying?
I'm going to tell you. You usually feel it's racism when it's a Caucasian individual or somebody of lighter skin. But I give you an example. For example, me living in the Virgin Islands, I would have seen it a lot of times where you would see a lot of individuals from like Dominica, St. Lucia coming to the Virgin Islands, and then you would hear them get called all kind of names. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it's not because it's not because they don't know better, right? But they get called these names. But then when somebody from the Virgin Islands move to the States and then they experience the same thing from another black person, then they start to realize the treatment of those individuals. They have a chance to now realize how the way they feel is how they have made someone else feel as well.
Well, I would say that I agree that I think, let me say, I think most prejudice is persons who they have the majority is who let's say hate on the minority, they focus on the minority. So I agree with your assessment that people need to live that to really appreciate what type of experience it is. It's really difficult to put into words, verbalize the hurt, the dislike. It's very difficult to elaborate as a victim. It's only actually, if you experience it, that's when you actually get to understand how dehumanizing it feels. And like I said, it's mostly the majority that goes against the minority. That's most almost any kind of discrimination, really, any kind of racism, xenophobia. It's always the majority acting upon the minority out of fear,
Mm-hmm.
some kind of fear. So, yeah, I would say that I agree with your assessment. I would say that I was curious. I did ask Ira this yesterday, but to elaborate on his own experience as a Nivision moving away to the US, for example. We are now, let's say you live as a person in the majority and you move to a country where you are the minority, for example. Like, how does that, what was that experience like? Because I would want to believe, for example, it would be hard to transition into having to live in that power imbalance, because you actually experience life in a way where you weren't, let's say, in particular prejudiced against based on those factors. Well, he said that if he says he's from Saint Croix, he would be met with, he would be banished from being claiming to be a Nivision, which it's true. But in average, in general, as someone that would live in Nevis, if he does not, let's say, express that sentiment, that express the information that he's not from Saint Croix and he just speaks normal, our people would not think of him as a non-national. People
Correct.
would not think about him being a foreigner.
Correct.
and that is not the luck of persons that are, let's say, Hispanic, for me Indian persons, are, let's say, even Chinese people that look different to the minority. So I mean, after that, you already stand out, regardless of whether or not you want to walk into a room and you want to be noticed or not. You are, because you are basically a different person in the room. You're different to everyone that is there, and that casts a great eye, um, on you off the bat. And then, it's not like you people are sometimes welcoming. They say, crazy things to you. And like I said, it's not that I think people are actually like outright they want to be this way. I know that there are some people that they don't care in general. That's who they are. You could talk to them, you could tell them how you feel, and but a lot of these things are just like, it is so. When I think about how people use terms and how they speak to me, I'll speak to non-nationals that I have observed, it is so laid back. Like, it's almost like, they think that it is acceptable to say these things and it really, like I said, sometimes the things that people say can hurt you in ways that you don't even know how it affects you until you actually get some time to look back on it, and you say to yourself, oh, I can't really believe that these things were actually said to me, these things happened to me, like I had to experience that. And what's crazy is that, as I was saying earlier, that I am Nivision. Like, I strongly associate with Nevis, not just saying it's Nevis, but Nevis more so than saying it's, because I've lived in Nevis all my life. Like, this is what I know. I've grown up here. I've gone through everything, preschool. I even did my degree online in Nevis. So, like, when people, try to belittle that by, something as fickle as, let's say, your hair, by the color of your skin, that's kind of crazy to me. It was much more hurtful as a child than now. I think getting older, you kind of learn how to maybe cope with certain things that happen. You deal with certain people, and Nevis is a place that is so small in terms of just the population. Like, you get to know people, you don't get to. It's not like something happens and you never see this person again. These are people that you know from childhood. They tell you these things that you grow up now, and you see these people around. These are parents. These are, as you said, politicians. These are people that are not just the regular average Joe. These are just like, it happens on a scale that is you know it touches all parts of society.
Yeah, definitely. For me, a lot had changed after I grew my hair as well. It is something strange to a lot of people. You could think about how Rastafarians was met with a lot of hatred back
True,
in the day because it was something strange to them, right? It's not
true.
it's not racism. It was just a strange way of life to them. It didn't match up with the life that the society had put forth as the norm. And because of that, they were persecuted. They were hunted down. We did a show with Rastafarian where we even spoke about how Rastafarians were shot. You were given a permit to kill Rastafarians on site. You know what I mean? Even though I know they
Yeah.
don't like the word Rastafarian, so let me start Rastafari on site. You know what I mean? So even with my hair now, I think that's where I started to see where a lot of the xenophobia behaviors come out. It's like, oh wait, who is this guy? And I'm like, um, people start judging me automatically based on how I look. The same thing you just expressed where you walk into a room and it's automatic. Oh, he looks like this. He's this. That's the kind of experience that I face. I face that to this day, and to some extent, um, I felt like it hindered me from even getting jobs when I was applying. I know one brethren of mine, he had long hair, he had dreads, and he had locks, and he wanted to cut his. It's just knowing that because you look different to what the status quo expect you to look like, and certainly somebody with long hair is a rebel. When you start thinking about even Caucasians with long hair, they're seen as rebellious and stuff. So that was
Yep.
one of my experience. My experience came mainly from my hair, and whenever I tell anybody I'm born in St. Croix, I'm no longer qualified to be a New Vision, which is quite hurtful at times. You know what I mean? Now, what I'm seeing of late is strong xenophobia towards like Haitians.
Mm-hmm.
Haitians. So I know. For instance, someone just asked if xenophobia is at an all-time high. I can't answer that question. I have no statistics. But what I can see is whenever anything with Haitians learning SKN, it seems like just because they're Haitians, they're faced with a lot of hatred. I ain't even gonna try to sugarcoat it. Get them out. Don't let them come here. You know, people like the view of Haitians on a whole, is very distasteful for me.
Yeah, but you also have to keep in mind that throughout time there's been a negative connotation attached to Haitians. Um, and that is why I think they're looked at that way, unfortunately. Um,
No, I
from the
totally
Obia and the
understand.
Dubis, from the
I
Obia and the
totally
Dubis
understand.
anyway, to the
I
great
totally
countries and
understand.
stuff like that.
I totally understand why they're perceived the way they are perceived, right?
But
But that doesn't make it right.
sorry, yeah, but not to cut you, but those are stereotypes, and you can't judge the
Yeah.
majority. You can't judge everyone by the same yardstick. Like that is still discrimination. It's still discriminating against someone because, I don't think that people that come from Haiti are, I don't think that they are bad people. I think that they are trying to escape a really really bad situation, and people need to kind of, you know stop thinking about. i'm I can understand why people have certain fears. I do agree that it is not in the best interest of, let's say, us as a small nation to just have an open arm policy towards any person that wants to seek asylum here. There must be
Hmm.
some type of process, because I do believe that, there must be a way to check the records of the people that come, whether you don't want criminals, etc., etc. But let's be real, like, these are people that are fleeing their countries on rafts and cars.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
how bad must it be there for
Yeah.
them to want to brave the ocean? Like, that's what I want people to understand. Like, regular people, like, why is it Nevis people not getting on a car or getting on a raft and going off the island, right? It's
Hmm.
like we complain that things are bad here. Yeah, things are bad, relative, but what they are coming from is absolutely, like, it's ridiculous. And I understand why people may have certain fears about people coming to Nevis. I trust me. I understand the argument. I see it, but I don't believe it, because I don't believe in judging everyone by the same yardstick, especially when it
No.
comes to stereotypes. Like, I am never going to be a proponent for that. And just to touch on something that Ira said, like, xenophobia, it can happen within race. Like, that is the thing. So, for example, you identify as a Rastafarian, like,
No. No.
it's
Me
still
answer.
a different culture. You still experience, you live life in a way that is different to most people that are, let's say, Christian centric. It is a difference of both ideology and religion, and people don't like that. People don't like, and the thing is, most people hate what they fear, and we have an extreme way of wanting things to just be gone instead of actually trying to understand certain things, like our first reaction to things is the most drastic. We don't really try to be empathetic. We are not really kind of, let's say, self-aware. So
Um,
um
Vijay, I agree with you, right? But my biggest issue is we don't try to get to understand the situations. We just take whatever little bit of information we have and we run with it. So we never try to speak to these people to say, hey, what really going on? Why is everyone leaving these countries? And sometimes we speak to them, hey, I like the Haitians, friends. Hey, about my Haitians. Some Haitians I know are real good people. You know what I mean? But I don't understand from speaking to them. They just show me some videos and stuff that going on in Haiti. It's real tough. So I understand it. But I think more people should be open to having conversation. I think if we open the dialogue, then we could find a common ground. That's one of the biggest problems. We don't open for dialogue. We just have this negative stigma against them and we just stick with it.
and I think that goes two ways. I think yes, we need to open up ourselves to learn about persons, but I'm not going to sit here and be let's say facetious and say that persons that come here don't hold xenophobic views as well.
Hmm.
So it
Very
takes
true.
both parties to want to bridge the gap,
Yeah, for sure.
and that's what
For
it
sure.
takes. It takes two to tango. Like, I agree with you that, and the crazy thing is that is actually just, as I said, that is just intrinsic xenophobia, where people just genuinely do not want to even have a discussion because they are so fearful of approaching that person for whatever, and that is why it's a phobia, because it is irrational. If you really
Yeah.
think about it, it's irrational. Because why are you so afraid to speak to someone that may just seem different? It's not like they are, you don't know yet. You just assume something from them. Just like if someone sees me, they assume that when I'm going to speak, I'm going to have a, let's say, for sure, a Guyanese accent. And it actually
Mm.
shock a lot of people when I speak. It actually does. Like, it's something that people would quickly pick up on, because what they assume me to speak like is not what I speak like. And that's what I said. Like, it is so intrinsic in people that they don't even know that what they are doing in the moment is actually, like, making that assumption is actually born out of some kind of xenophobia. Like, you're making an assumption because someone looks this type of way, that's why they should act this type of way, or that they should be this type of way. And it's not, that's not how it is. Like, it's not.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with you having a Guyanese accent, So just in case anyone's listening and they might
Nothing is
misinterpret
wrong.
that, but
Yeah, nothing is
it's
wrong.
just that it's just that the honest truth is that you were born maybe in Guyana, but you grew up and your whole life, all you know is Nevis.
It's but
So
and
your country,
but it is a reality.
yeah.
It is a reality for many. I would consider them to be Indonesians, like persons
Hmm.
that are of Indian descent born in Nevis, right? That is the let's say the issue that we face. But they are also the immigrants from Guyana. Like, they face that as well. They face that issue of coming to Nevis at a young age, and Nevis is all that they know. It's all that they know.
Yeah.
So I can't fault anyone for saying that, oh, well, I need to support this because um, I'm from this country or whatever. Like, it's what you want to associate with. Like, if you feel more closely with being a division, then that's who you like. Nobody should be able to tell you that you're not this, especially if you have, like, if you are here, you've inculcated yourself in the culture, which I have. Like, I think that I've both myself and my family have participated in things at even national level, like, culture wise, etc. Like, so yeah, I really do associate with being an Vision, and it is quite difficult. Let me say, it used to be quite difficult to grasp the the concept that people just don't see you for that because of how you look.
Yeah.
And like I said, for me, it took a long time to kind of get accustomed to certain things to cope with people. But I know that for the younger ones coming up, I know how, a lot of times we talk about mental health and we talk about how kids do in school and the things that but these are things that can really, really affect you as a child. Like growing up,
Mm.
it can cause you to have certain fears and, to be just in general timid, and I don't think that's a society that we want. We want the best. We've seen the change in general, our whole society as a, like, I can speak for being a Nivision, like growing up. I remember growing up and you had to basically tell everyone, good morning, good afternoon. You had to be polite. Please, thank you. And those are values that for me we have lost. Those are values that I can see now that we have lost. So, you know, I don't know. I think that someone asked the question earlier about if it's at an all-time high. I don't think that it is at an all-time high, but I would say still though. And when I say that, I mean just outright, like in general, people that would say things to you outright, I would say that it is not as prevalent maybe as it was when I was growing up, but I know that it's still prevalent. I still experience it myself. But I wouldn't say, I think I was telling Ira this earlier, the younger generation of persons now are more exposed to different cultures, different ethnicities, because more people have actually moved to Nevis. You have more groups in Nevis now, outside of just the, let's say, the Guyanese. You have Jamaicans, Trinidadians, you have the Hispanic community, you have the Dominican community. Like, you have different diasporas now that are now in Nevis. They have their own groups that, and people are going to be exposed to it. So think that I don't think that it is something that is going to well, let me not say that. It is still going to be prevalent, because like I said, a lot of these behaviors are just intrinsic. It is not even specific to Nivision people, saying it's Nevis people. It is something that the whole world, like all of us, even hold xenophobic views, even though we may not articulate them. But to even have the fear of something that is foreign, to even have that fear, you still, in a way, you are participating in terms of you're almost buying into the notion of, I expect this person to be this way. Why is this person doing it? Why are you here? But it is up to you now to make a choice to not. You make a choice to kind of understand how things go. And that is the difference. Like, we have to be cognizant of certain things. You have to be aware of certain things in order to kind of deal with it. So, that's why I am a strong proponent of, self-awareness. Like, you have to know certain things, or you
Now,
should be aware of certain things. Let me say that.
let's flip the coin as well, because like we mentioned, this goes in both directions, right? And we could take examples. There's no, it's you look at, maybe, let's say, for instance, the Chinese, as they come
Mm-hmm.
in our countries, and you look at the Chinese, and then you look at, for instance, their workforce, right?
Mm-hmm.
Their workforce will not reflect that of the population of that country. No, I know it's something that they do throughout, because I even here in America, it's the same sort of behaviors when you go to any Chinese restaurant, if you go to any Chinese store, you know what I mean? I ain't just trying to pick on the Chinese, but I'm just showing you that this could also happen from another perspective, where you have persons coming into your country now, and they don't really deal with you either. So xenophobia now they have xenophobia characteristics, right? Maybe, for instance, if you look at Guyanese, uh, they have coolie versus the Afro, right? the Indo
Oh,
ones.
Indian
Yeah,
coolie is actually a very,
the
yeah,
derogatory
it is
term.
actually a
Okay,
derogatory
no,
term.
my
Yeah,
bad. So then
that's what.
Indo Guyanese, or is it Indian Guyanese?
Yeah, you could say Indo-Guyanese.
Okay,
Yeah,
Indo
yeah.
Guyanese versus Afro Guyanese, right? And
Mm-hmm.
guess what?
Mm-hmm.
You know, those two clashes go on. It's brought here. It goes on. Maybe from the Indo Guyanese perspective, maybe even from the Afro Guyanese perspective, they bring it here and they continue it, right? So that xenophobia part is going on. There might be some racism tied into that as well. Uh, and we could also
Well, I
look
made a.
at.
So,
Huh? No, I
no, I was
was
saying,
gonna say. Yeah,
yeah,
go ahead.
yeah, go ahead.
No, I was also looking at the idea that a language has become a people, right? And Spanish. Like I always pull up people like, what do you mean Spanish? You know what I mean? Yeah, like wait, what am I called? English? Like
Mm-hmm.
no. Is it a Santo Domingo? Is it a Puerto Rican? Is it from Cuba? It's not just Spanish. It's definitely like that's a language. That's not a
That's so
group
true.
of people. You know what I'm
That is
saying?
so true.
So even with that, now you have everybody now classed in the same group. So once we get into the other parts of the discussion, you know, I know you were trying to say something, so I'm gonna let you say what I have to say real quick, and
Sorry.
then.
Yes, I wanted to just touch on the point you were making about the Chinese and so forth. Like,
Mhm.
I don't want to make a case for I don't want to make a case for it for anything, but it goes back to the point of two parties need to meet each other at the table. So here's my take on it. Like when people immigrate, well, let's say they emigrate from their country, immigrate to a next country, their
Mhm.
first thought would be to associate with what they are familiar with, and that's why a lot of these groups have such strong unity within their ranks, and that's why I think a lot of people hate, a lot of people don't like to see that unity, and that's what xenophobia, like the unity amongst those non-nationals, it strikes fear in persons that hold, like, those hardcore nationalist beliefs, like, you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that. But what I can also agree with, what I would like to see is those groups, much like how you would want an division to reach out and meet you halfway. It's the same way you should reach out and meet them halfway too. Now, for those persons that are part of the Hispanic community, it's difficult for them to be reached because of the obvious the language barrier, and that is something that is used against them as well,
Mhm.
um, because they can speak English and we can't speak Spanish, right?
Mhm.
The same thing may be said about the Chinese, like they don't speak English, we don't speak Chinese. So I think it's sometimes people stay in certain groups because they are comfortable themselves. I'm not saying I agree with it, but I'm saying that is what I can see it being like, you move to a foreign, like I would just want to assume that it, like, let's say when you move to America, for example, would you have chosen to, if you had the choice to move, would you want to move with, let's say, asking the assistance of a random stranger versus asking the assistance of someone from your own country, someone who you may know, to help make that connection for you? So, like I said, I can understand why groups stay together, but I am not a strong believer in just staying in those groups, and that is why I must say that um, I I think the Mashramana celebrations in Nevis that happen, which is basically a fusion cultural event that, let's say, marries Mashramani in Guyana and Culturama in Nevis, like having that kind of fusion events help to bridge that gap, because you can target both diasporas with one event. You get people out, you mix cultures, you mix music, so you kind of, and I feel like a lot of people fear these things because they see it as a loss of their own culture. But my question to those people are, what are you yourself doing to, keep the culture alive? You know what I mean? Like a lot of people say we lose our culture. We don't want these people bringing the music or the food. But what are you yourself doing apart from just complaining about the people taking your culture? What are you doing now to keep your culture alive?
Mm.
So it's too bad. Like we can't look at it as just we are losing our culture. For me, it should inspire us now to preserve culture more. It should encourage us to want to expand our culture, to put it on a stage, to teach people about ourselves as well. Like we can't keep I guess it's maybe the glass half full, the glass half empty, but for me, it's about finding ways to bridge the gap between certain cultures in any way that allows for a better society, better interaction of people in society. And just to touch on what you were speaking about in terms of Indo-Guyanese and Afro-Guyanese, like, this is just my observation, but I feel like in smaller countries, because let's say the population or the minority population is only ever of a certain number, it doesn't, sometimes certain things don't, let's say, happen outright. But based on my own personal observation, my own even experience living in Ghana, is that they actually have racism. Like it's not, it is racism. Like what you want to consider racism now, that is what it is. And for, let's say, in smaller countries like ours, it is more of a from a xenophobic angle that can manifest as racism, don't get me wrong, because I do feel like both intersect. I feel like racism and xenophobia intersect in some way, because one plays off of the other, one being, particularly against your race. Xenophobia is just the umbrella term for anything foreign. So that's kind of why I wanted to touch on that. And just to say, most persons that have an Afrocentric background, it's easier to assimilate into our society, because, like I said, the first thing that people really judge you on is how you look first. And then when you open your mouth and speak, they listen, they pick up on the differences. So that is why, let's say, someone may not off the bat say, oh, well, you're Spanish. But when they speak, oh, you're Spanish. That is what I mean. So it's different things that happen to reach to certain conclusions. But the fact that we actually are, I think, is the issue.
You sure want to chime in? Any?
No, well, he made a great point that people gravitate to their own, right? So you see, like he said, the Chinese will come and the Chinese will keep the community to themselves or whatever it is. And I totally understand that because I give you a great example. If you go to St. Thomas, there's a park, there's an area called Savan. And Savan, we don't call it Little St. Kitts. Savan look like Newtown. And when you go in Savan, it's all St. Kitts people. Because then what they would do is call somebody and say, okay, hey, come into the Virgin Islands. Yeah, yeah, come at me. And it ended up something like that. You know what I mean? So I understand it. It's just like when you go to New York, you go to Brooklyn. There's a lot of Caribbean people in Brooklyn. You know, we all kind of migrate to the same area, and we all kind of stay in our own communities. So I understand what he's saying when he said like the Chinese, sticking together and stuff like that. But again, I think there has to be an open dialogue between both groups and between all groups, so that we could get away from this. Oh, I don't like you because of how you look or where you're from. No, let's open the dialogue and have conversation so that we can understand each other.
All right. And then so some xenophobia stuff xenophobia properties are found in the Bible as well, right? So if you look at Deuteronomy 28, for instance, foreigners who live in your land will gain more and more power while you gradually lose yours. They will have money to lend you, but you will have none to lend them. In the end, they will be your rulers. Now, okay, that could be true. That could be possible, right? That happened in America because America was overtaken by foreigners, and All of a sudden now they run the place. So, but when these quotes are pushed out as a reminder to be careful of a group of people, rather than inspiration for a group yourself to keep pushing and become more, do more, or staying in front or staying on top or whatever, holding whatever advantage you have. Because to be honest, foreigners, when they do come to your country, they're coming at a disadvantage in most cases, right? Now, even though I do understand what you both were saying about grouping together, because it's like, if I come here to the United States and someone said this to me a long time ago, as you go farther out, right, the larger your region expands. I say that to say, if you once lived in country and you moved to town, right, and then you saw somebody from country, you're going, wow, you're from country? If you lived in Nevis and you moved to St. Kitts and you see somebody from Nevis, what? You live in Nevis? You go to Antigua, what? You're from St. Kitts and Nevis? You go to America, what? You're from the Caribbean? Okay, I think everyone would have gotten the point here. Now, the difference is what I'm talking about is economical prosperity, where you have foreigners coming in and they're starting businesses that depend on the local population. And that's the fact. The Chinese supermarkets, they depend on the local population. Rams, they depend on the local population. Now, this is where the difference is. I'm talking about economical gain for the local population. The local population, when you look at the Chinese, they don't hire local people. That is not just laming or sticking to a group of people. That is a refusal to hire local people. If you look at Rams, for instance, you might have local people working there, but if you walk in Rams building, you would never find somebody local with a very high position. I don't know, maybe they got one or two by now, right? But it is going to be hard for you to find somebody with a certain position in Rams, right? That is what I'm talking about. That aspect, right? I do understand people are going to gravitate into areas where they have people and family and friends. That is natural. That is how communities are built, right? That is not you deciding you're not going to deal with a group of people. That is you just going gravitating to people that you know. Correct? So if I know, and let's use Cane Garden as a prime example in Nevis. Cane Garden is known as a Guyanese community. That is fine, because guess what? They went in an area that people weren't living. They saw opportunity, they bought land, they shared it with their family, they shared it with their friends, they built a community. But now, if, for instance, and I'm not saying this is the case, now if, for instance, I try to go to Cane Garden and I try to buy a piece of land, and I'm being fight by those forces in that region, then you have a case of xenophobia, right? But also, if Cane Garden developed to the point where Cane Garden has banks, has shops, has all these things, and they decided, okay, we not gonna buy from Reese. We can't buy nothing from Reese, because Reese is not a Guyanese. That is xenophobia. And in a lot of these times, you'll find that patronage sticks in communities. And it could also be to build economic strength. I could understand that. But not to support any other community at all is a problem. For me to decide I will never buy from a Guyanese, that is a problem, because they are Guyanese. For me to decide I will never get a haircut from a Spanish just because he is Spanish, that is the problem. And I said Spanish now, you see, catch me, right? But that is what I'm talking about. I have to always stick to my group. You're going to stick to your group. That is a must. That is going to happen. It's human nature. You're going to stick to what you're accustomed to. But to always stick to that group and only stick to that group is where I think we have a problem, right? Okay then. So we're gonna move forward now, right? We don't speak
But
about the
I just
yeah,
want to
go
touch
ahead.
on something that you said though.
Yeah, straight.
In regards to the decaying garden situation. Well, I
Yeah.
feel like a situation like that. I think when it comes to that situation, I think we
Mm-hmm.
need to remember that xenophobia is the majority acting upon the minority, and
Mm-hmm.
that is very important to. So you can't have an instance where the minority oppress the majority. That
Well,
is,
wh- well,
I understand you speaking hypothetically.
that is not in where the whole majority acting upon the minority is not in the definition of xenophobia, right? It
but
is not.
most but but most forms of prejudice are the majority acting upon the minority.
Okay, let's keep it in that aspect.
I
Yeah.
understand. I
Mm-hmm.
understand what you're saying in terms of people buying in groups and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you think about that though from a long term, a long standing position, that is economically it is not viable because there's only a finite number of persons that exist and there's only a finite of resources that they have to spend. So how much money
Mm-hmm.
these people balling out with to be supporting businesses to keep them afloat, it's kind of I don't want to say, but it's kind of like when COVID hit Nevis, and then you started to see a lot of these business places that cater only to, let's say, a elite clientele, a clientele that normally the regular average Joe would even consider. They now had to find the means to allow locals to buy at their establishment in order to keep them afloat. So having that approach is good if it is that you can sustain it. But the
Mm-hmm.
truth is, we don't have that population to sustain it. And I also do wish that, I'm not saying that you can't have exclusive places, but I do also would like to see establishments being more local friendly as well. So locals can enjoy certain things that, let's say persons that have money can enjoy, certain places, certain experiences. It could be affordable for Nivisions to actually see and feel the things that, people come to Nevis to see and feel too. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think living in Nevis is a much different experience as it relates to visiting Nevis. And I think that is something that, I think divisions and in general, but I think it's something we as divisions should do, like just
Strong point.
experience Nevis, yeah, from let's say a tourist standpoint, to see what is it, how is our island really sold to people, what do people like, how do people think of us, when they come to the island, what are the things that we look for, because it's easy to think that we live here so we know certain things, but the truth is sometimes we don't. We learn things along the way. So yeah, and I want to one up you. I would say that in terms of xenophobia,
Mm-hmm.
I would say that the Chinese really keep in their circle to the point where, I know that it's quite difficult for persons to get sponsorships from the Chinese. And for me personally, I don't agree with it because I don't believe in existing in any community, any country, and you're not doing you're not having a social impact on the community, and that is important, and that is also how you bridge a gap. If you make
Mm-hmm.
yourself more visible, then people are more inclined to think of you in a good light. So it kind of baffled me in that sense that we don't, let's say, the persons that are tasked with doing these things, putting pressure on these business places to give back to the community, because and I think I just like the community is who support those businesses. Like, it's not
Correct.
just Chinese people that shop at the Chinese supermarket. It's not just,
Definitely
let's
not.
say, Indian people shopping at Rams. It's local. So why is it
Mm-hmm.
now so difficult? I'm not saying that things ain't tight or whatever, but I can tell you, like, local businesses, and I understand it is from the perspective of, being a division and understanding certain things. But just as well, like, you're part of a community, put yourself out there too. That is what the standard should be. That is what our business ethos should be, that you give back to the community that you're taking from, because you're taking from them, regardless of whether or not they like you, whether or not you like them. They're providing a service and you're supporting them. So I don't see what the issue is with giving back to the community in any way. And I don't support any one person that I don't support any group that just stay to themselves. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with making yourself unreachable. I don't agree with any kind of lines being drawn, people not having to mix. I don't agree with that. I believe in people. I believe in celebrating different cultures, different people, different food, different religions, because all of those things are what make us as human beings unique. It is our unique identifier in the world. How we view the world is not, let's say, the same. What we bring to the world, even on this show, what Reese would bring to the show is not the same thing that I will bring to the show, and that is what makes this show unique. Like it is just different things coming together to make something that is good, and that's kind of how we have to. I would hope people start to look at things. It's our
Definitely,
differences that make us unique in the world. That's just how it is.
definitely. Bitches said boycott the Chinese until they start to support. Support. They start to
I didn't
support.
say that, but
Bitches just
I
said
would say
boycott
that
the Chinese. Boycott the Chinese.
it is an observation of mine that
Yeah,
I
yeah,
see that they are not really forthcoming with, let's say, sponsorships, and that is just my
yeah,
own
yeah,
observation, right? I'm not saying that is the case, but I know that I've been a part of certain events, programs. I've been in certain spaces where you write for sponsorships, and the sad thing is sometimes you write the same people because Nevis is so small, and it's normally the same people giving, and the same set of people sometimes not giving. And I don't agree with that. I don't agree, even if you don't want to do sponsorships, but you must have some kind of social outreach into the community. That is how I
Mm-hmm.
feel. You must reach the community in some way socially, because you are taking. And if you think about it, shopping is a social, let's say, a social event. You go, you meet different people at the supermarket, So it may not be something that people really think about in that way, but more than likely, when you go to the supermarket, you see people, you have a conversation, even if it's just with the cashier, you get to meet and greet different people. So there's still a social aspect to shopping as well, apart from just buying and selling of goods or services. And that's just how I look at it.
Straight, 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 straight. You know, I'm gonna give an example. I have a very close friend, um, who is bilingual, right? Because I'm going to we reach into the final hour, and often right now in the political atmosphere that we have, you're hearing non-national this, non-national that, Spanish Premier maybe, whatever it is. You see what I'm saying? I have a very close
Yeah.
friend, and so many people wouldn't even know that when those comments are being passed, that like this person, it it, it, it hurts them so much on the inside, you know. And this is somebody that you would think people would really like rock with, you know. But we don't think about the things that we're saying when we're saying it. So when we start to put blame on group of people, now the rhetoric becomes dangerous, because now you start to breed a certain sort of attitudes towards these groups of people. Now, when it comes to politics in St. Kitts and Nevis, everyone knows that people take it quite seriously, right? And once you start blaming, just generalizing and blaming people, oh, right now, NRP would say they lost the elections because because of the Spanish vote. Rather than saying what they want to say, they just generalize it. And I think that is dangerous. It's really not a good move for the party, right? But rather than saying what they really want to say, which is they felt like there were illegal votes coming from a certain,
Demographic.
however, you check what I'm saying,
Mm-hmm.
brought in,
Mm-hmm.
not the ones then who registered and ready. Like, we have to be careful, because now you start to look at everyone from that community differently. You know what I mean? As, oh, look, man, you're not supposed to vote. So now it's starting to get in the point where non-nationals are not supposed to vote. Yet still, when we go out and we watch the social media and we go out, like Nivisions, everybody have everything to say about maybe a Donald Trump. You know, maybe they have everything to say about everybody else's politics. Whereas in our own world, we don't feel like foreigners to have anything to say about our politics. Even to the point, it's always a discussion. Should they be able to vote? Should they not be able to vote? At what point? I mean, I do think that there are some changes that we need to make in terms of when they're able to vote, to be honest, but that's a different discussion. So now we're dealing with one of the main characteristics of society, which is politics. Politics is now a driving force of xenophobia, right? To the fact where it has become almost dangerous, because where you hear talks of, oh, just pull them out of the line, you know, not trying to understand if this person is legally registered to vote. It is now based on what you look like. Oh, yeah, Spanish, let me pull you out of the line. Harass them. That is dangerous. That is dangerous rhetoric. I would encourage every party to start changing their rhetoric and stop talking about it like that. No, man, let's see him get off now, you know, because I only see amnesty when time come to vote. You check? So, no, do you really care about the group of people, right? Are you using them? You know? No, to use something and then discard it, I don't know how you want to class that. I would class that as I have no use, hatred, right? So this thing is happening on both sides of the table. This thing, we need to come together and we need to formulate discussions, and we need to start understanding that we as a people have migrated over the years. I was born in St. Croix because my father left Nevis for economical opportunity. Nothing was going on in Nevis at the time. Though when he reached to that country, he was faced with xenophobia. So it happened to him. Moving forward, right, we see people. I'm not bringing your party down. It's all right. Your party bringing itself down. Moving forward, right? Moving forward, you realize people migrate to America and they have the same set of problems. We as a people have migrated as well. We don't want to face the struggles that we often place on other people, right? No, and let me address the comment because I really want to address it. No, they didn't say that. They have always said they were cheated out of the elections. Understood. No, it is Spanish Premier and the Spanish vote. That is the wrong way of going about it. And your party need somebody to handle their PR a little better than that, respectfully. Because now you're isolating votes. The opportunity for you to get non-nationals to vote for you, they wouldn't even look at you because of how you class them all in one group. You have to say what you mean. If you want to say there was illegal voting going on, break it down. Don't just class it in one people, because this thing hurt people to the core. To the core.
I want to touch on something that you said in regards to just how people deal with the political side of things. I agree. I 1 million infinitely percent believe in some kind of voting reform. I believe in actual constitutional reform in general, but we need to reform the system that we have in place. But I think people need to kind of educate themselves as to what exactly is the process by which a person becomes a citizen of is, let me not say citizen, but is eligible to vote or can claim citizenship to be either Kitishan or Nivision. We speak specifically for Nivisions. But once you have, let's say, ancestry, once you can solidly link that you have family in Nevis, then you are eligible to cast, be eligible to register. Now, a lot of persons may say that a lot of Hispanics are coming in to vote or whatever, but a lot of people need to remember as well that, at a certain point in Nevis's history, as you said, things were not the best. Nivisions emigrated to different parts of the region, not just to the US or to the UK, but they would have migrated to countries like Panama. They would have migrated to countries like, let's say, Puerto Rico, Santo Domingo, all of those countries, and they have families. They started their own families there. And when you look at the persons that, let's say, they come in to vote, however you want to call it, like, these are not even people that would share, let's say, stereotypical Hispanic last names. Like, these are people that are Nisbets, these are people that are Will, these are people that you can look at, you may not be able to articulate from their perspective, but if you look at just even their last name alone, you can see the roots. Like, I mean, let's be real, you can trace a lot of surnames in Nevis in being specific to Nevis. Not saying that they can't exist elsewhere, but I'm just saying that surnames is something that are quite prominent if you're on a vision. And when you look at these persons, it's of the same ilk. Like, these are people that you can say, well, trace back once it's done properly. And they have the right to vote. Like, the Constitution has set it up that they have the right to vote. The issue now is politicians that use that as a means to win the election. So they try to recruit persons overseas. And I don't agree with that. I don't agree with I don't really believe in persons coming from abroad to determine any election, because most of these people, they don't live here, they don't have to experience life here in general. So a lot of our election is won or lost by persons that come in to the country. That is why elections, for me, the election was so tight recently. I think I think that the overseas vote did have a part to play in, let's say, let me say the overseas vote had a part to play in swinging not just this election, but any election in general, right? So we need to take a look at how we allow persons to first be eligible to vote, and also, like, what are the stipulations for persons that live outside of the country to come back and vote. Like, I'm not saying if you're a person that comes to Nevis regularly, you pay taxes or whatever the case is, but there are some persons that don't even know that Nevis existed until it's time to cast an X, and that something is fundamentally wrong with a system that can allow someone that doesn't even know that your island exists to have a say in the affairs of the country. Like, that is just fundamentally flawed. And I am telling you, these are things that I've seen at the polling stations. Like, people coming, oh yeah, it's my first time here, I can't wait to get to vote so I could go and go on sunshines, drink a kilo, be like, you know what I'm saying? Like, these are people that don't know what's happening in the country, so they don't care when they go back. They don't care whether people are not, they have money in their pocket, you got jobs and things like that. They don't think about infrastructure in the country. These are people that don't. Why should they care? Because they don't live here. So that is what I'm saying. Like, we need to find a way for persons, if it is that you do contribute to society in some way, in terms of fiscally, otherwise you visit, whatever, then because you are part of the community. But people now may turn around and say that, well, my parents were from here, and I'm not saying that you should be you should not have the privilege of having the voice to vote, because you do have your roots here. I agree with that. But I feel like you have to prove that you have your roots here, but what is your interest in the country? Like, what do you want to see for the country? Like, what have you done for Nevis outside of just showing up for the first time to cast an X? And I don't think that is asking anything too difficult. I don't think that is asking anything too difficult.
You might mute. You might mute.
No, no, I appreciate you for that. No, I share the same
Um,
sentiments, eh? I share the same sentiments. That's a different conversation, to be honest.
No,
um,
I understand that people will say
Yeah.
that you once you have a right, you're part of the country. However, I listen, I agree. I'm not
Hmm.
saying that anyone should be deprived of that opportunity, but there must be certain stipulations to be met to be eligible to vote. That is
Understood.
how I feel.
Understood.
Yeah.
And we can bring you back to have that conversation on a different
Yeah,
night, right?
but yeah, just
Definitely.
to touch now on
Yeah.
the non-national parts. Yes, I can agree. Being in the certain circles, yes, some parties are seen as less inviting to non-nationals than others. Certain rhetoric that is shared is very xenophobic.
Hmm.
I am appalled at the way that sometimes people say things on the political platform. I'm even more sad at the drones that operate for these persons on the platform, because the things that they say are what actually makes you lose the vote, as opposed to you know you lose the vote. You gain traction with your own your base, yeah. But as I think me and you would have discussed earlier, like, politics is not about rallying your own base, but it is about getting persons from the other side to buy into what you're trying to sell.
Hmm.
And non-nationals play a huge part in that. Like, if you
Yeah.
think about the a huge group of swing voters, it is the non-national vote.
Hmm.
Especially if it is that you don't have the facilities to, let's say, bring persons in to vote for you, then you have to win the national vote. And that is why the rhetoric that some may gain traction from, because I also do agree with you, Ira, that immigrants in general are the kicking stone. They
Yeah.
are the first to be blamed for everything that happened, most things that happen in the country, whether it be crime, lack of jobs, whatever you want to say, society going down, people bring their bad values, etc., etc. It's always the non-nationals that get the kick. Even when you lose the election, they blame the non-nationals for voting against them. And it is such a ticklish situation to be in. It is not something that I think most people want to. I don't think they want to talk about it, but the truth is, yeah. I mean, you're only known at a certain time, and most times that is around election time. But I feel like if you need to build your base, build it for 5 years. Don't just build it for a half of a year when you're going into election mode. That don't make no sense to me. And you got to kind of get away. Both parties need to get away from this rhetoric of alienating people, especially
Yeah.
by status.
You're correct. Amen. That's all I was trying to say. Want to take what I say any other way? Well, that's how that is. Reese, have anything you want to add to that?
no, continue. But I like um what he was saying about the voting. We got to bring him back for that conversation, definitely,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
because
definitely. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
for
think
sure, for sure.
maybe they cannot see eye to eye on that.
Sorry?
No, 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 no. Your thought is once you leave outside the Nevis, you shouldn't vote at all.
No, I
Now
didn't
with
say
that,
that. Let
no,
me
no,
let me
no.
be clear.
Reese, I
Let me
mean,
be
Reese, I
clear.
mean, Reese, I mean, Reese, I
Oh,
mean,
oh no,
Reese.
no, I'm
No,
not. I know.
yeah,
I see the chat blowing up. I see the chat blowing up with people saying that once whatever. And you see these are the things that people are saying now. Or you send remittances back, or whatever the case. Like, that is actually making a tangible contribution to
contribution.
Davis.
Yeah,
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 that is
no.
something that you can trace back. And, like, again, I'm not saying that persons should not have the option to vote. I'm not saying take the option from them. But what I'm also saying is there must be certain stipulations to be met to vote. I don't feel like something is wrong with that either. Like, saying again, and if persons want to agree with that, fine. I have no problem with that. But then you can't really be upset when the election don't work out in your favor then, when people take when people take advantage of the loopholes that now exist to exploit that part where you lose. Whereas if you move towards something that is more fairly focused, that is more people-centric focus, more vision focused for the people that actually have to live and be here. And I'm not saying take the rights from people who would have contributed to Nevis. I'm telling you that there are people that I have seen that have never, ever seen Nevis before an election. And these are big grown people. Like, these are not even kids. These are not even, like, you know what I mean? These are big people. These are people that don't live their life.
Yeah.
Like, for me, if you want to
Correct.
disagree, fine. But for me, the stipulation, there
Yeah,
must
yeah,
be
yeah.
certain stipulations to make it more fair. That's how I feel.
That's a different discussion. We can pull that back. That's something to leave them
Agreed.
wanting to join again. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's I agree with you. You know what I'm saying? I agree with you for sure on that. But we're gonna have a different discussion on that. Right now, we're tuning into xenophobia, a word coined in the 1880s. You know, because it was really to address the start of globalization. So we're back on topic now. Remember,
Right.
tune into the topics coming up right after this. Now, xenophobia, we could also see causing issues in our community locally, right? Let's look at it as from a macro level, right? What kind of gang wars we have in our country? Is it over drug? Is it over turf? What is it really over? It's really just because of the area where you're from, right? A man just hate you because you're from town. A man just hate you because you're from country. This is a fact. You know what? I beefing with a man from McKnight versus a man over in Newton or whatever the case may be. Just because you're from someplace different, you're strange, you talk differently, you move differently, you dress differently, you pull my girls, whatever the case may be. Now we could see where xenophobia has a direct impact and it spiral out to the point, right? It spiral out, it spiral to a point where now you no longer have control and you can't even identify it anymore. Because
What?
remember, huh?
No, the comment. What?
Yeah, they come and take me out too.
What?
Right.
Get it.
All right. Yeah, big up Alicia Herbert Jeffers. If you need any graphic design, printing, and shirts, cups, you could link up Alicia. Big up yourself. Cups or any other materials. She does printing here in the US. So if you need anything done, hit she up. But back to what I was saying.
What?
So now you have these wars between people who might find something strange. Where when you're from one region, you feel you can't go to another region anymore. Can you find any sort of xenophobia? I believe you could find xenophobia in that, right? Automatically, you reach a certain place, a certain area, people just don't like you because you're from that area. You know? Be it sometimes, I remember when I was much younger, I used to feel uncomfortable going to certain parts in country just because I'm from top, because of how I would have been met. You see what I'm saying? And I could also probably expect that country people would have feel the same way because I grew up in town. And I know how town people used to talk about how country people dress, talk, eat, whatever the case may be. Just because they're from country and they're different. Things are different. And we see how that behavior took a stepping stone and developed into beef and war, fighting and bloodshed. And now we're balling. When we realize that in our society we're breeding certain kind of behaviors and we don't even know what these like. Anyway, I think I've said enough. I think I've made a point that we could see that xenophobia could also lead to violence in your country, internal violence to your country. It's not even just, oh, a national versus a non-national, because you hardly get that. You hardly get a murder between a non-national and a non-national. But we do see a lot of sections of our communities fighting against each other, nothing other than where you're from, to a point where you had reached so high that no matter who you are, right? No matter who you are, you couldn't go into certain areas of Nevis because you're from another area in a Nevis. What you call that? You hate somebody because they're strange or they're foreign. Or you fear them. What do you call that? Isn't that xenophobia to
It
some
is it
Well,
extent?
is a phobia. I agree.
well, when when you look at the Caribbean, one of the biggest files in the Caribbean right now is actually in Trinidad with the Muslims and the Rastas,
Mm-hmm.
and that in itself is the definition of xenophobia. And you look at it where people who, because a lot of them actually used to go to the same high school, they go up together, and they
Yep.
cannot talk to each other. They cannot cross a certain line. How you
Yeah.
want to tell me I live in an area and I can't cross a street? And even if you're not
But
involved in it, you have to pick a side.
but surprisingly, there are places in I wouldn't say Nevis, but there are certainly places that so I'm made to be aware of. It is kind of the same in Saint Kitts as well, where there is only something minute that separates people that are actively quote unquote going to war. But just to piggyback on your point of xenophobia causing violence, right? Yeah, I am gonna tell you this, right? I don't
Mm-hmm.
condone violence. I don't condone violence in any way, shape, or form. But there are some things that people tell you sometimes that when they say it to you, it is very difficult not to want to resort to your most
Not to react.
primal and get violent with people. And it takes a great amount of self-control. And I know that there are people out there that say, well, sticks and stones can break your bones. Well, trust me, words could break your bones as well. Like the things that people say to you sometimes, and it is just as I said, it is dehumanizing. I need people to understand it is dehumanizing. It makes you feel less of a person, and I cannot stress that enough. It makes your individuality seem insignificant, and that is a huge, huge disrespect. To me, that's basically like sometimes some people say things to you, and it's basically they should have just spit in your face straight.
Oh,
And you know what? I've experienced people spitting in my direction, right? And these are the things like when it comes
oh,
to,
oh, oh,
like, I
oh.
listen to, I look at some of the things in the chat and the things that people say, and yeah, people may not want to believe it, but the reason why I wanted to do this is because someone need to have the conversation. It is a difficult conversation to have, but there is no growth without stepping out of your comfort zone. And as you said, putting certain topics, certain things that happen aside. Um, we sweep it under the rug, and it manifests until it explodes in a way that it becomes uncontrollable. And we have a way of just sweeping things under the rug. We don't like to confront the ills, the true ills that plague us as a country. And we keep thinking that, let's say, crime getting out of hand, this getting out of hand, but it's what you're not focusing on. It's certain things that you're not tackling. People growing up to hate, people learn how to hate at a young age. Maybe it's not hating each other, but they learn how to hate people. They learn how to look at persons as being, let's say, insignificant, less than human, and that manifests when they get older and they get exposed to other different things. So it is not. It is something that people may not look at as maybe a big deal because, as you said, there is not violence that stems from it. But the truth is, when you grow people to hate in any kind of way, it doesn't have to be xenophobia, but when you grow people to have a fear of something in an irrational sense, then when they grow up, that is what they're going to act out. And maybe you as a person may not act out on it, but somebody else might. Like things that people tell me, I may not personally act out on it, but somebody else might. And that is the thing. You can't just keep hiding behind the fact that oh, it's just words. And there's something called hate speech. You people like to use this term, oh, we have the freedom of speech, but they forget to talk about the responsibility. People forget to talk to emphasize that even though you have free speech, you should be responsible. You can't just be telling people whatever you want and don't think that it's going to have some kind of effect, and sometimes that effect can result in violence. And as I said, I am not a proponent for it. I genuinely am not. I would never um, say that I believe people should fight back in the literal sense. But I could understand instances where people do things, and in that moment, you become so triggered that you snap. Like, I can give you an example of a situation that I faced. And this was when I was actually an older person. Like I was actually, I think I was in sixth farm at the time or something. I think I was in sixth farm. I went to collect something from the boat, and I passed a lady that was sitting down at where you walk onto the boat. And me, people that know me would know that when I normally pass people, I would normally, like I said, I grew up in Nevis. I grew up knowing that being polite is the way that you have to be. So I normally pass people, tell them, good morning, good afternoon, at minimum, even though, we ain't pitch marbles in school, but I believe in that. That is what I grew up knowing. So I passed the person and I was like, good night. And the person was like, I don't want any effing guy needs to tell me good night.
Wow.
And I was so shocked, right? I was so taken aback, right? Like I look around, like I was like, excuse me, and she was like, me want you effing good night, and I just come here, and the person just went and like this kind of, they
Wow.
went off on a tangent. So I was like, okay, cool, I left. I went to collect whatever I left, but of course I had to pass back. And there still was like, you need to go back from where you're from, etc., etc. Me no want a good night from, and all of this was triggered from just a good night,
Good
just me
night.
telling this person good night. Nothing of no malicious. I didn't know the person at that time up until that point, right? And this is not even something that, like I said, I didn't experience it at a younger age where you could say, well, okay, for me personally growing up, there were not much of me around. Let's say there were not people that look like me around. I didn't have that community to be around. I didn't have that community to let's say to pull into. So I faced a lot of things and I had to face it on my own. I really did. Like the things that people tell me, I had to face it on my own, just like this. And the thing that shocked me was that, this is someone that I would want to, and like I said, Nevis is such a, let's say, a small place in terms of you get to know people. Once you move about in Nevis, once you on the go, even if you just pass through certain things, you know people. Like faces don't change. Once you see a face, then more than likely you're gonna be seeing it more often, right? So these are not people that could, and it just kind of, it was just like, I was so hurt at the time that I could remember, like when I got to the vehicle, I just started to cry. Like I broke down because I was like, wow, I don't know what I could have possibly done to this person to cause them to feel this way. Like I just basically tell you good night and I get this whole, this epistle about non-nationals and Guyanese people specifically, and you know what I mean? And it's just like, and at the same time, I learned that this person was employed by a non-national. And that was the craziest thing about it. Like you basically depending on a non-national to, put food on your table. And at the same time, you're basically cussing one, but it's just the fact that, people think of you as inferior. That is the problem. When people think of you as weak and they could prey on you, that's why they think that, they could tell you certain things. And I don't agree with that. I don't agree with preying on the weak or people that seem weak. I could give you some examples of things that I've experienced that I know that maybe it would shock people, maybe not, because like I said, a lot of us don't want to be held accountable for certain things, but that's the
Mm-hmm.
truth. And I can tell you, there are some persons that I would have grown up in society and see the way that they treat me, and I don't talk to them now as a big man, because I mean, those, even if you have certain things, you just don't say certain things. Like, you as an adult should never say certain things, especially to children. You don't know how that impact them at a mental level. That's what people
Mm-hmm.
forget. Like, you already have to navigate life amongst your own peers, being different. Imagine having to deal with adults too, and the things that the adults say, it's like it's crazy. The things that people, like I tell you, the things that I've had happen to me, sometimes I look back on it and I laugh, because I just think about how surreal it was to be in that situation. But the feeling of being powerless, helpless, dehumanized, like there are so many things that has happened to me, and I know happened to non-national as well, other persons, even my own family. Um, you know, it's not as I said, it's not an easy discussion to have, because a lot of us, that we don't want to think about the bad parts. We don't like to think about what is bad, but the truth is, it is an issue, and these things, it's not, like I say, if you don't experience it for yourself, like if you don't have someone that actually, let's say, ostracize you, be prejudiced against you, you ain't really gonna, I can never articulate it in a way that will make you understand it. Because it's not just the things that people say, it's also like the condescending way. You're left to feel really powerless in that situation. Like, where is your power? And sometimes, like I said, the only time you can take back your power is sometimes through violence. That is how some people react to being powerless. Like, it's just like you back an animal in a corner, like you don't think it's gonna bite at you. That's how I look at it. So yeah, I mean, I think we've come a long way. Don't get me wrong, I think that things have gotten better. But
Mm-hmm.
I can just tell you, like, there are a lot of things that people are very microaggressive with, as it relates to being xenophobic. Just like, let's say, for example, I say I want to eat lunch. Then somebody might say you're going to eat curry, like, like why? But that is xenophobic. Like, why does that have to be? And I get that a lot. I get that a lot. Not now, but I get it a lot as like going to school, and people say these kind of things, and you don't
It's a
see it
bit
as
task.
that. You don't see it as being xenophobic. You think you're busting joke, but it is intrinsically, it is xenophobic. I mean, if you're in a small friend group and people want to make them jokes with you, then I mean that's okay. Because for me, like if I'm amongst my friends and I know it's a safe space and we have that joke, then that's
Mm.
okay. But if you can just meet somebody for the first time and tell them things like that, is that you like, the audacity is unreal. That is unreal audacity to tell someone that, and it must be because you are coming from a place of supreme power. Like I won't be touched. Like this person just, I would say, even like my last name, for example, people would either mispronounce it, and even if I explain it, like I would tell them, I would break it down for them, and they would willfully do it. They would willfully mispronounce it after. They would um they would call me by different names. People would just see me and just call me like this random Indian name and just hope that it would stick. Like, you just throw something out there, and I hope you respond. Like, I
Hmm.
mean, like, but those things are like, that is stereotyping. I mean, like, how, and my thing is, people may say, oh, your name or whatever the case is, sure. But for me, your name is the only thing that are one of the only things that you will ever have for yourself in life. Outside of, people can give you titles. You could be a doctor, you could be the prime minister. Those are titles, and those can change, but not your name. The only person that can change that would be you. And that's the only thing that you're gonna carry. One of the only things that you carry from your birth to your death is your name. And I don't feel like it's okay for people to, disrespect you because you have a different last name. You understand what I'm saying? Like, those things are
Mm.
not right. It's not good to dehumanize people even by what they are identified as in the world. Like, and I would say this, like, we may make a joke about it because we don't understand, but let's suppose an division goes to Russia, for example, and they have to pronounce, and they're not familiar with pronouncing certain surnames or first names, for example, then you would feel offended the same way, especially if it comes across like this person isn't even trying to pronounce it properly. It's not like innocent mistakes. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Like, it's people that willfully, and as I said, it's only until people actually start to do these things to you, then you understand how, embarrassing like I said, I can't stop saying it, but how dehumanizing it feels to be treated as someone that is not human. Like, that's how you feel like you're not worth being here because you're not a human. And I can speak for myself. I really struggled with my identity as a child. Like, there were points in time where I was identified as being different so much that there were times when I was like, but I wish I could fit in too. I wish I looked different too. I wish my hair was different. I wish my skin was different. It was
Mm.
different. Like, people really make you feel like you're not, you shouldn't be proud of who you are. And
Mm.
I'm happy I had the support to actually, be able to appreciate, my ethnicity as a Indo-Guyanese, let's say. But truthfully, I identify as being an Evision. Like, being in Nevis is all that I know. Like,
Mm.
I can remember, you know, let's say, participating in cultural activities. I learned to do drumming. I learned to do dances when I was going to school. I represented not just play, but I was, captain teams for Nevis. People don't understand that, the pressure, for me, the pressure that I was under to do well as a child, not just because, let's say, I started at an early age and maybe I got a few, but because I was a foreigner. People look at me as a foreigner. I had to whatever I had to do it twice as um twice as much. I had to work twice as hard as the people around me. That's how I felt. And
Mm.
it's not easy when parents come around and they're in the little shushu and you hear them, well, what make he even a play? Like, why is he the captain? Why he even playing? He not from here. That's what people would
Mm.
tell. That's parents now coming to say these things. And as a child, I mean, it is
Mm.
yeah, it is difficult to think back to, but I am happy that I was able to get out of those situations,
Mm.
and be able to have this discussion now, because I feel like a lot of youngsters may not have the, let's say, the support that I had in terms of being a part of the society and mixing and mingling. And I would never tell anyone that I think the majority of Nivision people, the racists, are they're xenophobic, because guess what, it's what I am too. So if I
Mm.
say that you're something, then I am too. And I don't
Yeah.
believe that those persons represent us. I don't believe people that harbor those types of views and discriminate in that way, they are not people that I would consider to be Nivisions. Like, I know Nivision people to be warm, hospitable, friendly. My best friends, all of them are, well, let's say most of them are Nivisions. Like, my first friends that I've had for 10, 20, 30 years, you know, it, Nivision, So it is not, I don't think that those persons, reflect society on a whole. I don't think that they speak for, and I don't feel like they speak for. But when we talk about interaction with other communities, how now would they think about, hey, I interact with this person, that's how they feel. They may hold a prejudice now. They may feel that fear because if this person tell me this and treat me this way, who's to say that this other person wouldn't? And that's where I say, we kind of have to bridge the gap between those types of things. Like, not because you may have experienced this means that you should shut yourself off as well. Like, one person doesn't speak for the diaspora. That's what I believe. So, so yeah, we have I still think we have a way to go in terms of like just being really cognizant of certain things. Um, but I think this conversation is very necessary.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to say that it is very sensitive. When I think back on a lot of the things that I experienced, not just me, but my family would have experienced, like it was really really hard, really, like it was really difficult, kind of growing up and being different. And I hope that for the younger generation, that they don't kind of have to experience, like, I'm not saying that we can eradicate anything in society. I don't think that there's ever going to be a society that doesn't have persons that hold extremist views, whether that be racism, xenophobia, anything else. But I think that if we can limit the people, and it comes to education, you have to want to learn about other cultures. Like, there's some people that skin up their face when it comes to learning, even trying something different. Like, you can't just be in that box. Like, if you live in that box, you're never really gonna see the world for what it is. And the world is a big place. It don't just exist. Nevis is not the world. And until you start to look at the world for what it is, different places, different people, different cultures, different food, different religions, like, until you could see life like that. And that is something that has to be intrinsic. But until you could see it like that, like, you can't really expect people to really change.
Big up yourself for that expression. Definitely big up yourself for that expression. Um, I
Yeah,
wanted us
hold
to
on.
Now,
get into.
to the
Hold
person in the comments, like, I would never support, like, I've keep saying, like, I've actually captain Nevis. The only Nevis team that I haven't captain would have been the senior team, right? So I have a no sentiment towards anything, let's say, Guyanese related. I accept that it is a part of who I am. It is a part of my heritage. But when it comes to anything saying it's Nevis related, I would be the one to wave the flag. The only reason I don't wave the flag like that is because if somebody tell me to take down the flag, in a moment, I might hit them with the flag, and I don't think that people want to see me going to the police station. So that is what I said, that there are sometimes people say things to you, they don't know how things affect you, and I would suggest that we take a good look at ourselves and see the things that we say, the way that we treat people. We need to be cognizant of certain things, especially as it relates to telling people where they're from. It is not something nice to experience.
Please go ahead quickly then.
Well, hey, I commend you, video, for your reaction to the lady when you went to the pier to go pick up what you went to pick up. Because a lot of people would have respond right on this matter. So the fact that you didn't respond and the fact that you were still able to remain respectable, I commend you for that. I can't say I would have done the same thing. So I definitely commend you for that because I would answer. Yeah, I sorry the answer. We can.
I mean, I guess you just kind of have to learn that, like I said, these dynamics are it's very difficult to assess, because you never know when people get violent. And like I said, it is something where, if I feel like, if someone can tell you something that, um, let's say, volatile, something that is so disrespectful, then they clearly don't care about what the consequences are. And if you can't care about the consequences in that moment, then you have no fear in, let's say, getting violent. You really, you yourself have no let's say, you have nothing to stop you. Then what stops you then, if you're willing to say something, then, like, let's say, to act upon it? And that is the fear, like that, like I tell you, that is the fear that people face. Like, it may seem like, oh, I want to answer this person, but then you have to think about, well, what if I answer this person and they hit me? What happens if I answer this person and it become physical? Then the whole dynamic of the situation. And people really do get aggressive with you. I think
No, I don't.
when,
No, I don't have to take a chance. I don't have to go through. It's funny too, because I remember when I moved to the Virgin Islands, I used to tell people, yeah, please leave me alone. Don't harass me. Please leave me alone. Because I had response for everybody. I got a response for everybody, and my response didn't come fast.
May believe that. Now, unfortunately, we ain't gonna get to dive into the solution part, but as the title suggests, this is xenophobia, the beginning of the conversation, right? Um, I'm gonna let Reese say his piece, and then I'll say my piece, and then Vijay, you say your piece, and then we wrap it up. We gotta get ready for the topics, which starts at 9 o'clock tonight. So
Yeah, well, well, Vijay, thank you for being here, opening this conversation with us. It's definitely a topic that we need to keep diving into. I think it's a problem that more people need to be open to, right? I just spoke about being a child and going to certain things. And as kids, we don't pay attention to certain things, right? But as you go older, you look back and you say, damn, is that what this person meant? Is that, you've been through a lot. Like you say, you and this young lady had an altercation and they peer, But thank you for accepting our invite and being here. Hopefully, we can have you back so we can continue the conversation because this is not the end of it. So,
yeah,
thank you.
all right. Thanks, Reese.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Vijay, of course, I share the same sentiments as Reese, so thank you. Definitely for me, I've been trying to have this conversation for years. Real Talk Corner is about to enter its fourth year, and I wanted to have this conversation really early up in Real Talk Corner's existence. I I saw Vijay when I went home to Nevis this time. I approached him, and he was like, "Yeah, straight up, yeah." And just the confidence and the brave, you know, how brave he was. Vijay also told me, he was a bit nervous before, having the opening this discussion. I don't think this discussion has ever been had in the federation. I've never seen it before, and if I'm mistaken, please correct me. But I've never seen it on any platform at any point in time, at any point. And that is just to show you how taboo it is, because I think some people are even afraid that they might even expose themselves, right? So I just want to say big up VJ for stopping by. I don't know what kind of flag you might get for doing it, but hopefully I think it opened the eyes of one or two people. And once it opened the eyes of one or two people, then mission is accomplished. So thanks again, VJ.
Thank you. In wrapping up, I just want to say that I appreciate the platform. I appreciate you reaching out to me for us to have this discussion. I think it is a very pertinent topic. And I'm just, kind of scrolling to the chat and looking at some of the comments. And, it is one of the reasons why I think that people may feel fear because certain things people may say. For me personally, I just want us to be a better Nevis, and I'll make reference to a comment in the chat about if Nivision people go out there and they're treated differently. Let's say if a Nivision person goes to Ghana, would they be treated like, we don't get to control how people, you know, what they do to us. We can only control how we deal with people.
Mm-hmm.
So if you present yourself to be someone that thinks negatively, if you go out and you think negatively, well, I feel like that is what you're going to attract. I believe in the law of attraction. And I believe if you're a positive person, positivity is going to come to you. If you're a negative person, negativity come to you. Against that it is correct, it is right, but that is not a conversation that the three of us can have. We are not we are not in that space. We are in a space where now we control, we have the control, and it's just about enlightening people to certain things. I hope that it speaks to a broader need for people to actually open their eyes. And like I said, that there are some persons that, you know, regardless of whatever information you present to them, no matter how you articulate, what you articulate, whatever, they are so entrenched in their own way. They're entrenched in their own way of thinking, their own way of living, that, you know, I always would encourage people to read Plato's The Allegory of the Cave. It is a very powerful look at, a very philosophical but very powerful look at how people in general in societies, how they think, how they live. A lot of it, a lot of things, a lot of changes that people have to make have to be intrinsic. It cannot be us having the conversation. Yes, it is good to start the conversation. And I also agree with you, Ira, that, you know, I believe in saving one. As a former youth development officer, I believe in saving one, you could save the generation, because that one that you save could be the one that inspired the next generation. And that is why it is important to have these discussions, even though you may not reach a broad audience, or you may not reach the intended audience, but still, some conversation is better than none. And if we think of ourselves as, you know, persons that want a best, not a better Nevis, but the best Nevis, to aspire to be the best Nevisians, the best humans that we could be every day, then I think that is a good benchmark to aspire to be. I don't think Nevis wants a reputation of being an inhospitable place, or a place where, you know, people are not welcomed out. That is not how we sell ourselves. And, you know, that is not something that I think anybody should be proud of. We shouldn't be proud of prejudice. We shouldn't be proud of discrimination or hate. It is actually crazy when I look at some persons that hold these views are the same persons that are willing to fly certain banners, you know, overseas. And, you know, when you look at it, as you said earlier, when you look at it, how do you treat non-nationals here, but you're willing to go to fight the battle for next country that is oppressing minorities as well? But, you know, I believe charity starts at home. If you have um, if you have these beliefs, then, you know, empower people in your own community to see it that way. You just can't be shouting into a vacuum, you know. And let me just say, in regards to the flag statement, now for me, like I said, I mean, I am not a violent person. I would never resort. I think if you hear me resort to violence, I ran risk. It is for, I would want to believe it would be in self-defense, for just cause. So you can put up the bail money for me. You can bank on it not going bust. I'm not a violent person. I feel like I am an vision. I have flown the flag as high as I could in every moment, every instance that I got the opportunity to represent Nevis. I've always done it with pride. I've always done it with honor. It's always been a distinguished privilege to, you know, represent Nevis in any way and in every way. You know, I feel like regardless of where we go, we fly our flag. We are a representation of our country, and we should always strive to be, you know, I'm not saying anyone is perfect, but we should always strive to be the best. So,
Right.
you know, yeah.
Respect for that. And that's it for tonight. You don't know. And thank you for tuning in. Hopefully, you get some thought. We had this very thought provoking conversation, so I hope you get some thoughts going. And stick and stay. Tune into the topics next. And Reese and VJ, enough respect. It's been real.
I
Real.
thank